What's up, Mafia? I'm Fernando Schmude. That's your leading the charge, and today I have the pleasure of having with me Bill Tooke from Twitter, a Bills fan from Twitter, and a guy who always is interacting via Twitter. I'm totally trying to bring Bills Mafia on the leading the charge, giving a mic so people can opine and share their thoughts. And today the opportunity is to Bill, and I really appreciate you taking your time to join us today. Bill, welcome.
Thank you, Fernando. It's my pleasure to be here.
Awesome, man. And just like we were talking offline, it's been a crazy couple of weeks, right? With some crazy news about the article about Sean McDermott and previously Von Miller being even in jail. So how are you feeling about all this crazy season so far? The Bills have been in a crazy situation right now, right?
I've been a Bills fan since 1986, so I have seen a lot of ebb and flow with this franchise for a very long time. And I've got a lot of battle scars for being a fan of this team. And I sort of expect all of these bizarre, unusual situations. I guess they sort of played a lot of professional sports teams across the world, but the Bills seem to have the corner on very bad timing of very unusual things happening to them. But, you know, the Dunne piece, I think, is interesting. I don't think I've heard terms like character assassination or why is this coming up now? I don't think it's character assassination. I mean, you could make an argument that, okay, Dunne and guys like Matthew Fairburn and others maybe were denied credentials. And you could say, well, everybody has biases and things like that, right? Fine. But, you know, these things come out because there's a story to be told somewhere, right? I mean, the Bills are 6-6. They were expected to contend for a Super Bowl title. They still theoretically could if they go on a run. And you're just wondering, well, why are they the way they are? And you look at certain through lines that exist, and you go back to they're 0-6 in the last 6 overtime games. They were like around 500 at best in one-score games. And we're always told, well, those things will regress to the mean, they'll average out. But they're not really. And contrast them to the team the Bills are playing on Sunday, Chiefs, who were like 29-10 in their last 39 one-score games. And you sort of see, well, what's this differentiator here? Why are they not ever the one seed? And why are the Chiefs always the one seed? And you look at it as, well, roster, quarterback, they're pretty equal. It has to come down to something, and that something's most likely coaching. And what Dunne talks about here are things that maybe we've seen. I mean, you and I talk a lot on Twitter. The end of game decision making, the tightness, and I hear like, well, what execution failures? But you start to wonder, well, aren't these execution failures tied to maybe a mindset of concern, paranoia, fear of losing, rather than excitement about winning? And it's just okay. The story seems to be validated in what Dunne was talking about. That's my impression of this.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. And I feel like when people are commenting and talking about, oh, he has an axe to grind and he's targeting McDermott and character assassination, I feel like most of these people really haven't read the article at all. Just the parts that are out there, like criticizing McDermott or calling him out for some of his mistakes. But I wasn't a subscriber. I had to subscribe to read that article by Dunne, and I did so I could really opine, give an honest opinion about that article. And just like we talked on Twitter real quick today about it, I first of all, I feel like there is a lot of positive stuff about McDermott in this article. Some people are just ignoring it, right? They are taking all the bad stuff and choosing to make it bigger. And yes, it is big stuff, because with the situation the Bills are right now, with 6-6 and risk of not making the playoffs, and a lot of people starting to call McDermott, mainly the people who support McDermott, they feel like, oh, he's being attacked, he's being under fire, he's being in danger, and they go out to support him. But I have no questions about, okay, maybe Dunne has some bad mood towards McDermott, or about no access and all, but he could choose to take those good things away, not put it on in the article and make it a fully negative article. But no, he did an extensive research.
25
He
sources.
had his right, a lot of sources, and man, it was a great job. I really appreciate his job. I think, just like you said, Bill, the things are out there. The things happen. McDermott himself was talking to the media yesterday when he wasn't supposed to, and he was apologizing for something that happened in 2019. Okay, it has maybe it doesn't matter anymore, but it happened, man. All those things happen. Most of those things happen, right? So I appreciate his job or bringing it out, bringing it to us, bringing it to light, and I appreciate him making us to be able to learn about this, because one of the things that I've talked about a lot of things here based on like insinuating, I'm not living inside that locker room. I don't know. I don't have that information from that intel from inside, but I have my past as an athlete. I lived in locker rooms like for professionally for 16 years, soccer locker rooms. It's not as many as 53 players, but we need to live with 30 other players and coaches, so the dynamics are similar. And how some of the stuff that happens, how players take it, how coaches react to it, how fans react to it. So a lot of stuff that I was fearing about McDermott's years there, he's been there for a long time now. There is a reason he's the winningest coach in the franchise. He's been longer than Levy already as a Bills head coach. So, man, with time and no wins, and especially bad losses like we've seen recently, things start to get worse. There is a reason for Diggs to say, man, every year, same thing. Mackenzie said it in the piece, in the article. Every year, same thing. I feel we could have won, and we, for some reason, didn't win. And again, my biggest fear, Josh Allen, man. Every time he leads a game-winning drive, leave the field, like
losing.
Yeah, my job is done.
Yeah.
We won the game. Against the Chiefs, 13 seconds, it was pretty clear he felt like that. Against the Cardinals, he felt like that, the Hail Murray. Man, against the Eagles, we could look at him in the sidelines and he wasn't as certain anymore, right? Because, man, I've seen this movie before. Right?
He's not throwing interceptions to end these games. He's leading them down to score a game-winning or game-tying touchdown or field goal within 2 minutes. And inevitably, even the Jets game where he puked all over himself for most of the game, he still took them down to kick a game-tying field goal sent it to overtime, and they ended up losing in overtime. He's doing everything possible he can. All of the other players are doing everything possible they can. Dunne's piece came out because Sunday they're playing the Chiefs, and it's going to be the scene of the crime of 13 seconds again, right? It wasn't because they're trying to stick it to the Bills before the Chiefs game. It's because this is what it just reminds you of what happened a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. It's over and over and over again. And whenever you have these sort of coaches and quarterbacks that are interconnected to each other, Bill Walsh and Joe Montana, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, you saw a Super Bowl win within 2 to 3 years of the coach and the quarterback getting together. Right, 81, Bill Walsh and Joe Montana, they won Super Bowl 16 against the Bengals. The first season of Brady and Belichick together, where Brady was the starting quarterback, the Patriots won, and you do Super Bowl 36. So you don't see that. It's year 7 of McDermott overall, year 6 of Allen and McDermott together. If you look at McDermott's record in the first 2 years, so the year that he did not have Josh Allen and the year that he had Allen in his rookie year, his record was something like 15 and 18, right? They broke the drought, but it was kind of a fluke. But really, was it Sean McDermott or was it Andy Dalton and Tyler Boyd that kind of broke the drought? They flukily broke the drought. They ended up losing a one-score game against the Jaguars in the wild card. They go 6-10. He's 15 and 18 after 2 years. That's Rex Ryan kind of numbers, but they stuck with him. Allen gets better. Still not great in 2019, but he gets better. They go 10-6. Another really difficult overtime loss where they blew a 16-0 lead against the Texans. You could really see what kind of coaching decisions are made where they just can't seem to have a killer instinct. Excuse me. And then 2020, they have a breakthrough, but there's still issues. There's the Hail Mary, like you mentioned, in 2020. There's all those field goals they kicked in the AFC Championship game that year. All of these things happen over and over and over again. And you just wonder, Yes, the Bills have the second best winning percentage among all professional sports teams since like 2020. It's great. Excuse me. Is that Sean McDermott? Or is that Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and this great roster that Brandon Beane put together? Not saying McDermott is riding the coattails of this. I want to give him a little more credit than that. But he's like Mike McCarthy to me. I mean, it's like saying if you get rid of him, are the Bills going to necessarily fall back to being a mediocre team? I don't think so. They've got Josh Allen. Josh Allen puts you in the hunt by himself. He will get you 8 to 10 wins by himself, regardless of who is the head coach. So I think there's this mindset that Bills Mafia has, and I get it. I'm a little bit older. I saw them go to multiple Super Bowls and be really good for a long time. There's a lot of younger Bills Mafia fans who didn't experience that. All they know with the Bills is losing. All they know with the Bills is ineptitude, terrible quarterback play, sort of gutless coaching. So they fear that returning. Because they fear that returning, they don't want to cash in their chips. I understand it. You don't want to be bankrupt. But you're not going to win it all. You can't just be satisfied with 10-7, 11-6, and a divisional round of the playoff loss ad infinitum because you're worried that the next guy isn't going to be as good. What if the next guy is a Hall of Fame head coach and you have your opportunity to win multiple Super Bowls? You got to do what you can to maximize this opportunity that you have with Josh Allen during his prime.
Yeah, man. Just like you said, McDermott, man, how many soul-crushing losses will need to go through before those people can move on from this fear or from this being worried about getting back to the raw years? Because, man, you have Josh Allen now, and people say, okay, we have Josh Allen and you are 6-6 now. Man, we are like a few mistakes, bad mistakes away from the defense, from the head coach, 12 men on the field, missed field goals of being 8-4, right? And that's 100% thanks to Josh Allen, mainly, right? So, man, that's a guy who he deserves better. Every time I see Josh Allen waiting on the sidelines after getting the job done, and I see the Bills losing a game, and I see he going to have his interviews and taking the blame all the time because he's never throwing nobody under the bus. Man, all I can feel is like he deserves better than that.
Absolutely, he deserves better.
I have a question for those people who really can't have enough of McDermott failures. Like, how long until Josh Allen, because he won't say it out loud in the media or via interviews that he's done with Sean McDermott or he's done with the franchise. He won't do that. But you gotta start to think about, look, this guy, he has his family, he has his advisors, he thinks about his career. And how long until he looks at Pegula, he looks at the franchise, and he seems like, okay, they won't do anything better than that to help me to get my Super Bowl ring, to improve, to take the next step in my career. So how long until Josh Allen asks out? And when it happens, it would be like out of nothing because he won't be telling media, telling people on interviews or shouting at McDermott on the sidelines. That's not Josh Allen. All right. So that's something I'm afraid of. And that's something that I really feel like Pegula would pay attention, gotta pay attention, gotta do his research, gotta call some players to talk to him, call some coaches to talk to him, call some people inside the organization to talk to him and gather some information, because I also feel like you have the franchise quarterback. You don't need to move from Beane to, because you're moving from McDermott. You can keep Beane. You can even elevate him to team president. You can allow him to lead the next search for the next head coach, right? Because he's doing a good job. And he's a guy, again, from the piece from Dunne, again, shows that's a guy who everybody was telling good things about and trusting him and loving the way he works. And again, a lot of those people, they aren't Buffalo Bills anymore, coaching staff for players. Oh, because McDermott wanted to, but maybe because Beane wanted to as well, right? Beane is the guy who cut players, who released players. So a lot of those guys could have said bad things about Beane too, and they didn't.
Yeah. I think it's interesting.
I really feel like.
Well, you don't think somebody like Kyle? I mean, Brock Purdy's having a great season. Don't get me wrong. You don't think somebody like Kyle Shanahan wouldn't rather have Josh Allen than even Brock Purdy, right? You know what I mean? So I think, not that Allen would ever consider leaving. He seems a pretty loyal guy. Absolutely does want to win a Super Bowl for Western New York. But eventually, I mean, you make a great point. Like, eventually, how many times could you keep going to the same well and not getting a different result? And I think that, to me, sort of dovetails with all of this. You know, you're in year 6 of Allen and McDermott together. You're in year 7 of Sean McDermott. And you're starting to get into, like, Marty Schottenheimer and Marvin Lewis territory here, right? Which is, okay, is that okay enough to be relevant? I mean, it's great that they're on Sunday at 4:25 and they're on with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, and they're a nationally televised game, and they're not, you know, God bless Spiriditas and Andrew Catalan and all those guys, but they're not 4th or 5th in some regional buried team, you know, it's some also ran. They're really good. But is that all we're in here for? You know, like I said, I watched them go to 4 Super Bowls. They lost all of them, but they still were in it. And one thing that sort of bothered me over this iteration of the team is this is worse, right? To lose 4 Super Bowls stinks, but to know that they were good enough to always be there is great. To see the level of talent on this team, top to bottom, and to have them not be able to really break through, that's demoralizing for me. I can only imagine how demoralizing it would be for a guy like Josh Allen, who's like, well, what are we doing here? Is this ever going to happen? Doubt eventually creeps in. I mean, he's still only 27. So I think we have to be sort of compartmentalized a little bit, right? Because he's still going into his prime. And I think that's why I'm so, I don't know, vitriolic with people strong, but I'm so adamant about getting the right person in there to run the franchise. Because you've got about a 5-6 year window where Josh Allen is at his apex, right? And the idea that you're not going to get, certainly not an offensive mind, maybe Joe Brady is, who knows, but not an offensive mind that could be able to shape the team during this period of time when you got peak Josh Allen. It's like, I don't know, what are we doing? Like, I think it would be an absolute tragedy if Josh Allen played his entire career and never made a Super Bowl, right? Or, yeah, I think that would just be, it would be mind-boggling. And it happens. I mean, Dan Marino played a Super Bowl in the second season with the Dolphins and never went back. So it's certainly possible. But just to never make it, and especially in a year like this where the AFC seems actually kind of down unexpectedly, like, how could you be able to, like, look at this coach and say, okay, this is good enough? I don't see there's any rationale behind it.
Yeah, man. Bills Mafia, please subscribe to Buffalo Rumblings channel, hit that like button, and I appreciate your help. Feel free to interact via the comment section here, and we will answer your questions for sure. Bill, not taking away, I need to put it out because a lot of people maybe are listening to this pod here and, okay, here we have 2 McDermott haters, again, talking bad things about McDermott, and it can be farther from the truth, you know, because I really like the way McDermott built this team, this culture inside the building, and just like you said, he was able to break the drought, and I don't feel like it was random. I feel like, okay, he was a new coach. He was installing a new culture, and players bought in. You know, when players buy in, good things happen. And he was a new head coach, putting on installing a new culture, of new players coming in, buying in, and putting out the work, right? And the team started to win a lot of games, play disciplined football. We could see what McDermott preaches on the field, unlike it's happening right now, right? And the result was good, right? But man, time flies by, and I mean, we are in year 7, and sometimes it's tough for a guy like McDermott, who he's a Christian. I'm a Christian as well. That's why I really love the way what he preaches and what he wants for his team as men, you know, as character wise. But it's not easy because, man, I'm a flawed man. You are a flawed man. All of us, we have our flaws, right? And McDermott isn't different. Sometimes we tend to think like, or the players that we really love, or the coaches, they are superhuman, but they aren't. They are men, just right? And McDermott has his mistakes, right? He has his flaws.
Yeah, he's a person. I think he's above reproach as a human being. I think I don't think anybody thinks that he's a bad guy. I don't think he's necessarily insincere or anything like that. He certainly takes his faith seriously. He seems like a good family man. At least from afar, I can see that. I will say there's anecdotes in the article that Dunne had that are like, well, I don't know, maybe he is insecure, right? And I think maybe that sort of manifests itself in certain ways. But I mean, I think he's a good guy. But I mean, being a good guy that's great. One thing that I've seen a lot recently in terms of describing the Bill situation is you have guys who are great at bringing, say, any organization, not just sports team, like a business, anything, back from the brink of despair, bankruptcy, like they're in the dumps. You have certain guys who have the skill set to be able to bring that organization up to a real great level, to a golden period they have, or at least a silver period they haven't been in a long time. But it takes a different kind of skill set to take that now from the dumps to really good, to go from really good to great. You think of like the Tony Dungy Tampa Bay situation. They were a disaster under Hugh Culverhouse. And a lot of bad head coaches were always perpetually a losing organization. Tony Dungy comes in there with the Glazers, and they turn it around, and they get really, really, really good. But Dungy's ceiling with that team was the divisional playoff, was an NFC championship game, Rams in '99. Like that's as far as they could go. So they had to replace him with a John Gruden who could pull them over the finish line. And you see that a lot. The Phil Jackson analogy, like in two different places, Bulls and the Lakers, right? Doug Collins was a great head coach. But you needed Phil Jackson to take the Bulls. You're a Bulls fan. To take the Bulls.
Yeah.
The titles. You needed him to replace those. So the same thing with the Lakers, right? They were good. You needed Phil to sort of be there for Kobe and Shaq to take them to the next level. And I think that's the thing you see here, right? And is change scary? Of course it's scary. Like, why do you want to give up on a guy who's won all the time? I understand that. But it's also, things get stale after a while. The message you don't hear it. I mean, you were in locker rooms with soccer, and, you have to change it up. You have to, because the culture can get cobwebs in it after a while, right? The house can get kind of stale. So I think that's why it might have to happen. Do I want it to happen? Ideally, I want the Bills to shoot the moon, win the next 5 games, somehow get into the playoffs, backdoor their way in, go on a run against, all these backup quarterbacks in the AFC, and somehow pull a stunner against the 49ers or whomever in the Super Bowl. Great. That's what I want. That's what you want, Swallow. We have to be realistic. Is that going to happen? Probably not. And if it doesn't, where are they going to be in 2024, 2025? Where are they going to be in 2026 when that new stadium opens up and they have to have all these PSLs that they have to sell and all these tickets, right? Is this going to be able to move the needle in 3 years to fill that stadium up? I mean, Josh Allen can do the best he can, but I don't know, right? So you have to look at things short-term, medium-term, and long-term. And that's why I don't know. But they're still in the hunt, right? They're still mathematically alive, so we're not going to bury him yet because that's foolish. But, if it doesn't work out in the next couple of weeks and they're out of the playoffs, then you really have to look at every aspect of the organization top to bottom to see who's going to be good, who's going to not be good. And, we're going to have to make roster changes too, right? I mean, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, they're not getting any younger, right? Von Miller, all the issues with him. Yeah. Not getting any younger. They're going to have to look at this cap, especially with Josh Allen's cap number is going to be really impacting a lot of things going forward. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no doubt. And still about McDermott, I really feel like, just like you said, man, I brought this comparison to the Bulls and Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan before, and Phil Jackson himself used to tell about his father's way of thinking about us as a man. I totally forgot the name of the profession. Like a father, but not a father. He's not Catholic, but he's what Phil Jackson's dad used to say about preaching something to his crown, and that had an expiring date. Like he could only stay on a city, on a community for a certain time, for 3 or 4 years, and he got to move on after that, and how the 2 three-peats with the Bulls, how he had 2 totally different teams, other than Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and he had 2 guys who totally built in on his ways, and he changed all the roster around those guys and won 2 three-peats, right? And with the Bills, man, it's not like Stephon Diggs is totally buying in on McDermott's stuff right now. It's not like Josh Allen is going to continue to buy in. We aren't sure. I personally can't really know about Josh. Still say the right things to the media, but I can't believe Josh is 100% behind McDermott at this point, with all the ways McDermott and his defense let him down in crunch time. So how long until those players really... We've heard a lot of things about Diggs. He can't be traded. His contract doesn't allow it. But I really believe Diggs is done with McDermott, with all the situation in the training camp, with McDermott saying he was totally concerned about Diggs' situation, right? I really can't believe Diggs is fine with McDermott at this point, right? And he's a guy.
I think
even his last interview. Did you hear his last interview? Like, he was like, "What do you think about firing Dorsey?" And he was like, does it matter what I will continue to work. I'm a professional. I put the work, I produce. So what I say here, it doesn't matter. So for me, as a former player, I'm like, okay, if I say that in an interview, I'm like, man, ask the coach. I don't care about what he's doing. I don't know what he's doing. We've seen what he's done, right? I'm doing my job, right?
I think winning.
I'm doing my part.
Winning
it sounds like this for me.
Everything. Yeah, I mean, winning does cure everything. If they go out and they run the table and they win the Super Bowl, I mean, I think that buys him some more time, obviously. But yeah, I mean, McDermott seems a kind of guy who he's so invested in the process that when you have guys who are really like process-oriented people, it's really hard to have like wild cards, right? You know what I mean? Like an alphas who might want to challenge that process. I mean, so I can sort of see why there's personality conflicts, and why there's personality conflicts with other coaches, and why you had guys like Frazier not come back before this season, because I think, you know, maybe maybe McDermott is a tough person to work for and with. I don't know. I think the thing is, my biggest issue, all I can see is what I can see on Sundays, right? I can see a little bit of the practice on TV, but all I can see is what I can see on Sundays, and it's the same failures over and over and over again. And if I'm not seeing any kind of systemic changes, if he's not getting better at 2-minute, preservations of leads and closing games out with decision making, then I just don't know if it's ever going to work out for this guy, right? And yes, all the stuff that you're talking about, all the player relationships and all the personality kind of things, and making sure the culture is great. That's all great. It's a business, right? You got to win, and you got to be able to get the 1 seed. You got to be able to maximize these opportunities. And if you can't do that, then there's just nothing. There's nothing really more to be said, right? You got to look elsewhere. You got to take it one day at a time and see what happens. So I don't know, but yeah, I got to duck out of here. But it was a pleasure talking to you today, Fernando. And enjoy the rest of your show. All right,
man. I really appreciate you taking your time, Bill. The leading the charge doors are always wide open for you. Thank you so much, man.
Sounds good. Take care, man. Thanks. All right, bye-bye.
So, guys, that's Bill Tooke here with us, and I really appreciate him taking your time. I will continue talking about Ty Dunne's piece and some of the stuff that I just talked to Bill in the last part of the show in a minute. So, just to keep in mind, and still talking about Bill was talking about, I get it that a lot of Bills Mafia is like worried about if McDermott goes and if he's fired, we can hire a bad coach, we can deal with a rebuilding process. But to be honest, I can't really believe that's a high percentage of chance of it happening, because we have 17, we have Josh Allen, and this season, man, the Bills have played teams that they could totally beat. We could be in a totally different situation right now, if not by bad mistakes by McDermott, by special teams, and by lack of discipline. That's something that McDermott has preached all along, and this team has lacked this year. And just to to keep in mind, Doug Peterson was hired 1 year before Sean McDermott for the Eagles, right? And he won a Super Bowl. He had 2 negative seasons following this Super Bowl. He got fired. The Eagles hired Sirianni, and they have been back to the Super Bowl already, and the Bills continue to be with McDermott, right? And so that's something to keep in mind, okay? Nothing is guaranteed, right? You can really misfire and hire a bad coach and have some trouble, but with Josh Allen there, a lot of offensive-minded coaches. Imagine Ben Johnson, for example. He's doing a great job with Detroit Lions and Jared Goff. Won't you think like this guy would be crazy to take a job like the Bills with Josh Allen as his quarterback and being able to lead a powerhouse offensive side of the ball? I have no doubts in my mind. And look, I really like Sean McDermott's defense. I really like his schemes. And maybe you fire McDermott, you need to hire a new defensive coordinator, obviously, and you need to retool this defense, change the schemes, change the way they play, change a lot of pieces. You're going to need to change them anyways. Hayden Poyer aren't getting any younger. Von Miller, just like you said, a lot of pieces will need to be replaced, right? I love Terrell Bernard. Maybe if you replace the defensive coordinator, you hire a new defensive coordinator, maybe other defensive coordinator. Bernard isn't the ideal middle linebacker size and what he wants for that piece. And maybe he's a misfit there, right? But this defense, despite being so good, and I really love the schemes, the way they play all those years under McDermott and being number 1 ranked all those years, they haven't played like number 1 ranked defense when it mattered the most against the Kansas City Chiefs, against the Cincinnati Bengals during playoffs, and in close games, late in close games. They haven't been able to close down games. They have been responsible for some of the biggest losses in this era, this McDermott era. So even if his defense is so good, and I really agree they are good, I really like the way they play, I like the schemes. Again, I like McDermott as a defensive coordinator. But his flaw is a fatal one. It's an awful flaw to have, to be a good defensive coordinator that chokes or that can't produce in the most important time. And we haven't seen McDermott change it. He overthinks things. He calls his timeouts, the Kodak timeouts, according to Dunne's piece, that all his former players and coaches spoke about. And he does some stuff that really doesn't contribute to those Bills teams and doesn't have the job done, doesn't get the job done. So I also would like to keep McDermott's schemes, defensive situation, and look, it's not totally impossible, right? If the Bills want to go in-house direction, and obviously it's too soon to point out Joe Brady as a potential head coach. He just started his job as an offensive coordinator. But the Bills have people in-house. Bobby Babbitt is an up-and-coming coach, and Brady's an up-and-coming coach. So the Bills have some people in-house in case the Bills want to move forward without McDermott, but keep Bean and maybe give some of those young and up-and-coming coaches opportunities as a head coach for Brady, maybe as a defensive coordinator for Babbitt. So there are some possibilities. And there is an interview process to be done where you can find it, you can interview, and you can find a good coach. Just like the Bills did with McDermott, finding the right coach for that situation back in the day. So I really feel like the Bills got to start thinking a little bit ahead, and Pegula start looking into some possibilities, because I really can't see McDermott changing his ways right now. It's happening a lot of times, and there is nothing point out that he's gonna change his way and that he's gonna stop overthinking stuff and that he's gonna start trusting more Josh Allen, giving him an opportunity to drive downfield with 20 seconds left on the clock, put the ball on the hand of the biggest asset of the franchise instead of trying to overthink it and trying to protect him from himself and stuff like that. Give him the opportunity. Oh, what if Josh throws an interception? Man, if Josh throws an interception with 20 seconds left on the clock and loses the game, you can bet everybody's gonna start to look at Josh Allen and start to asking for more from Josh Allen. After all, he's paid to win those games for you. That's why he was made the franchise quarterback for the Bills. So McDermott overthinks it, and he takes the responsibility. Or actually, he brings the responsibility to his defense, and he can take it. He can't really win games this way, and it's totally depressing. And how long will can understand that and fear for the worst, fear for a Rex Ryan hiring? The Bills gotta try something different. That's what I think right now. That's how I see Sean McDermott right now. But I understand there's no guarantees. You can't guarantee the next head coach will be better. There is a chance he can be worse. Yes, there are no guarantees in anything. There are no guarantees staying with McDermott will give you a Super Bowl or even give you a winning season next year. He hasn't had one so far. He's not having one this year, right? So there are no guarantees. And I used to have a coach that told us as players, like, you can't let your fear of losing be bigger than your joy of winning games, right? And that's how I feel Bills Mafia is or a portion of Bills Mafia is dealing with the situation right now. The fear of being back in the drought years, pre-McDermott years, is bigger than the excitement, the joy of winning games, or the hope of winning it all, winning a Super Bowl. They are fine allowing those soul-crushing losses happen every year as long as the Bills continue to make the playoffs under McDermott. And I can't understand that. I really can't understand this line of thinking. But I can understand that there is a chance things don't get better hiring a new coach. There is a chance for everything in life, right? So I hope if the season continues to go bad, Pegula can look at alternatives. And at the same time, I just answered Greg Thompson Twitter today. Greg Thompson tweet today. Shout out to Greg from Cover One, when he posted like a lot of people who are against McDermott right now or want him fired and don't trust him anymore. The Bills have a chance of making a run right now with the next few games, and the AFC is wide open. If it is, and I really believe if these Bills make the playoffs, they will be dangerous there. And there is a chance the Bills can win it out still with McDermott. McDermott still has this shot to prove it this year that he can change and win big games and lead the Bills all the way, right? And then Greg posted that a lot of people would be celebrating like, oh, not so much, yeah, and things like that. And I just answered like, not me. I would, man, if McDermott leads the Bills to Super Bowl this year, I will be the happiest man in the world. I will be the first one out here celebrating and telling great things about McDermott and telling that I was wrong about him not being able to change his ways, not being able to overcome those mistakes late in games and overthinking situations and being afraid of late game situations, afraid of losing. I will be the first one to tell I was wrong, and I'm happy I was wrong, and I'm happy for Coach McDermott. I'm happy for the players, happy for everybody, and for myself as a Bills fan. I will be the first one, man, no doubt. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, and right now I really don't believe McDermott can turn it around. I really don't, right? I really think it is he is who he is, right? And Dunne's article just pointed out a lot of stuff that I was afraid of, that I was really worried about. Okay, but it makes total sense. And if it changes, if the Bills win it all, no doubt, I will be very happy. And I have no problem telling you, oh, I was wrong. Man, I didn't want Josh Allen per draft, right? And I was totally wrong. And thank God I was wrong. And I love Josh Allen right now. And I have no shame saying I was wrong, right? NFL evaluators make mistakes all the time. Why I can't make a mistake evaluating a player? Why can't I make a mistake evaluating a coach? It happens. The coaches make mistakes. The players make mistakes. It will happen to us too, right? I don't have an agenda against McDermott. I don't have anything against Coach McDermott. Completely the opposite. I wish he could change his ways. I really wish he could. I just don't believe it will happen. And a lot of the stuff in that article uh, confirmed the stuff that I was afraid of, right, and worried about. But just like I started the podcast talking about, there is a lot of great stuff about Coach McDermott there, and I want to talk about it too, because Patrick DeMarco, or former fullback, and Lee Smith, or former tight end, both team captains, both respected leaders, respected veterans, they said great things about McDermott on that article too. So it's not like Tyler Dunne was just wanting to spread bad news about McDermott, bad things, and to get him fired. I feel like he really reported a lot of stuff, made a great uh, research, and he could bring on a lot of interesting stuff, right? And when those guys say that McDermott genuinely believes he's doing the best for the Bills, he genuinely wants to win, and that's his biggest goal, and he's all the time thinking about how to make the Bills win and how to bring a Lombardi Trophy to Buffalo and all those things. I really believe in them, and that's awesome about Coach McDermott, and I never questioned that. Some people say it's character assassination. Just like I told to Bill, and I couldn't continue. It's hard when you are a Christian, you are preaching a lot of good stuff as a man and doing the right things and being a man of character all the time. You are put under a microscope all the time, right? And when McDermott was a recent hire, a new head coach, players really didn't know him yet, right? And it was easier to preach some stuff and to his players to believe in him, because they were like, okay, this coach is good people. This coach want to do the right things. This coach want to treat everybody correctly, right? And it's great for a group of guys to buy in and to follow a leader like this. It's awesome. But with the with time passing by, right, you start to be put under a microscope as a head coach, as a leader. And McDermott, just like I said before, he's a man, a flawed man like me and you, right? He's human being. He can make mistakes, and in a situation like his, as a head coach, as a leader of a team, where you need to hire coaches, fire coaches, where you need to put players to play, others on the bench, where you need to cut players, when you need to pick inactives on game days. It's hard to please everybody, right? And sometimes you make mistakes, you make bad choices, you fail some people sometimes, and it's not every time those people will understand you. They will be like putting you under a microscope and telling, oh, wasn't you the correct, the man of character, the guy who want to do all correct? How was you talking bad stuff behind my back? And as a coach, sometimes you gotta go to a positional coach and say bad things about a player. It's not like it's personal, right? But he gotta hold those guys accountable. It's part of his job, and it's not like every player will take it and understand it. So it's really difficult to be in that position of leadership that McDermott is in, and I really can't understand people getting mad at him, or some of those players that aren't Bills players anymore, maybe holding some animosity towards McDermott. I really can't understand that. At the same time, you can't ignore his mistakes, right? And you really just wish it wouldn't happen anymore. I mean, his mistakes on the field, like his late games mistakes, his overthinking of situations down the road and down the line in crunch time. Those are the things that really worry me, not those personal stuff inside the building, right? The 9/11 situation, I really can understand a lot of, especially American people, being totally mad at McDermott for talking about this kind of stuff. But man, I really can believe I need to be out there defending McDermott on that. Not that he was right to do that comparison, but it's obvious that when he made the comparison, he's putting aside all that happened, all the tragic stuff. He's putting aside all the role of the terrorists and what happened, and he's focusing just on a group of people that had all the odds against them, but planned so well, communicated so well that they could get their job done, ignoring all the other stuff. It's obvious, right? If you wanna ignore it, right, and make it about the tragic event, I think you are taking stuff and trying to use against a man that wouldn't obviously talk about it in that sense. He according to himself, he lost some friends in that situation. So it's not like he did it because he's an evil man, or it makes zero sense in my mind, right? And obviously he could have choose another situation, other example of people doing really well in working as a team and communicating well, and he picked a situation that opened the door to allow people to tell things like I've said some headers today on some text. McDermott wanted Bills to work as terrorists. Like, man, come on. That's character assassination, in my opinion, right? So, according to Tim Graham today, it's bad news. It's old news at One Bills Drive, and that's nothing that McDermott got still talk to Pegula or to anybody else inside the building. It's a thing of the past, right? But yeah, he wasn't totally unfortunate. He could have picked any other situation to talk to his team, and obviously it's a group of 53 players. Man, you can bet a lot of guys would take it negatively, would make jokes about it, or others would hate it. It's obvious, right? So I'm pretty sure the man himself regretted it a lot already. So other quick hits about Tyler's Dunne's article about McDermott. Nothing that is there really makes me feel more against McDermott than I already was. And again, I'm not against McDermott personally, right? I'm against McDermott's failures, repeated failures in crunch time, especially. I'm against McDermott repeatedly letting Josh Allen down, right? Letting some of his players down with bad choices in the worst time possible. That's my biggest concern with McDermott, and that's what I really don't believe McDermott can change. Other than that, a lot of interesting stuff in that piece, a lot of stuff that confirms to me some of the things I was worried about. One of them, McDermott losing his locker room. The piece says a lot. It talks a lot about how McDermott connects way more with his defense and how his offensive players really don't get along well with the head coach. And that's something I was worried about, and the article confirmed to me. I think it's natural. He's a defensive coach, but also we've seen some very charismatic leaders connecting with everybody, and McDermott isn't this kind of guy, right? So it's natural to see him having some trouble to connect with some of the younger players, and especially with offensive side of the ball players, because he's always very connected to the defensive side of the ball. Even when he had Leslie Frazier as his defensive coordinator, he was a big part of that defense. He's taken over the defense for some periods, taking over the play calling even, right? So that's something I was worried. There are people saying that Diggs can't stand or isn't happy playing under McDermott. I totally believe in that. All right, it's pretty obvious in my opinion when Diggs every time showcases how disgusted he is with the ways the Bills have lost in the last few playoffs. And in just this year, when McDermott says he was totally concerned with Diggs not being there, when McDermott himself excused Diggs from that practice, I really don't believe Diggs trusts his head coach. again, Josh Allen will never throw anybody under the bus, but at some point, you got to start to think about how long until Josh Allen gets frustrated under McDermott, right? Because the coach himself has said Josh needs to change his way of playing, needs to protect himself better. And to be honest, I don't feel like Josh really cares about it. He's a player. He want to go out there and play the way he does. And that's the way he plays his best football. And even if it's going to cost him and decrease his years in his career, that's the way he likes to play. And it's better to enjoy Josh Allen playing at his absolute best level for, I don't know, he's in year 6, he's entering year 7, for 10, for 12 years. Man, it's better to enjoy Josh Allen play like this and making the transition when he really needs to do it, instead of trying to hold him right now of being himself for extra 1, 2, 3 years, playing a lesser quarterback, less dangerous quarterback. So how long until Josh gets frustrated with that? There are already in the article there is a sentence about Josh starting to show some disappointment with McDermott, and I can take it and I can understand it, and I hope Pegula is paying attention to that. All right, and I hope Pegula can talk to his quarterback and take it under consideration when the time comes. Other than that, the coach is talking about McDermott treating his coaches badly, and a lot of the positional coaches making lateral moves, like Shed Hall went into the Jaguars, and Heath Farrell going also to the Jaguars special team coordinator, and a lot of those coaches not enjoying working under McDermott. It's been pretty clear that McDermott hasn't taken the responsibility of his mistakes. He always it starts with me, but it starts to talk a lot bad execution on the players or bad play calling from coaches, or offense needs to run the ball more, run the ball better, or quarterback needs to take care of the ball, and the defense has played good enough. We listen to it all the time, right? So it starts with me, but really I don't buy it, right? As McDermott being holding himself accountable, and the article brings a lot of stuff about McDermott being unfair with some of his coaches and players and the way he acts towards them. I totally believe in it, and the Shed House situation was totally a awkward situation, and that's a coach that was beloved by his wide receivers. And man, I saw it a lot of times of some head coaches that I worked with being afraid of the relationship between positional coaches and players, right? A goalkeeper coach being too friendly with a goalkeeper. I was a goalkeeper. I used to have great relationship with my goalkeeper coaches, and I've seen in the past some head coaches, some coaches not understanding that, not accepting that, not liking that, and McDermott was totally mad with the wide receivers buying a car to their wide receiver coach, a guy they loved and hang out with and were friends, a guy who had retired not a long time ago, a former wide receiver. It doesn't look good. It really doesn't look good. And one of the things that I've supposed here several times about how in the past, in the fight between McDermott and Brian Daboll, right? How Daboll had to sometimes go rogue and say, you know what? Let's unleash Josh Allen and the offense the way I believe it should be, and forget what McDermott wants, and let's succeed that way. And that article says exactly that about the Bills' offense starting to play on a whole nother level with Daboll in his last season here, and having that best stretch we've seen from this Bills offense so far during the playoffs against the Patriots and against the Chiefs in the 13 seconds game. And it was reported by Tyler Dunne as an offense side of the ball led by Daboll saying, you know what, we're gonna do our thing and let the defense and McDermott adapt to that, and that's what happened. And I supposed it was that way. I insinuated that, and people were like, "Oh, you have no clue about what you're talking about." But it made total sense because we could see the offense playing two different styles of football, even during some games, and we could totally see when Dable was unleashing Josh Allen. And it wasn't reported by them, but for me, it started to be really clear after that game against the Seahawks. The Bills aired it out like 15 first plays were 15 passes, and the Bills started to stomp the Seahawks, and it was awesome. But right after that, when the Bills couldn't have success throwing the ball, everybody started to, the Bills got to run the ball better, the run game sucks, and things like that. And it was pretty clear. Today, the Bills can run the ball efficiently, and that's a great addition to this offense. But back in the day, the offensive line was in real trouble. The Bills couldn't run the ball without Josh Allen's help, and it was totally clear the Bills were wasting some plays trying to run the ball in a conventional way, right? And they played their best football with Dable really unleashing Josh. And Dable is a totally friendly coach, a guy who connects with his players. He's friends with his players. His players love him. And again, another thing that made Sean McDermott really insecure about it, right? And Josh Allen loved Dable. Josh Allen connected real well with Dable. And I can't help myself and think about how all those partnerships between great head coaches and great quarterbacks led to Super Bowl wins, right? And we don't see, just like Tyler Dunne's article says, we don't see this connection with McDermott and Allen. It's the opposite. Every time McDermott has a chance of giving Allen more opportunities to win games, to lead the team, to get the plays done, we've seen him trusting himself and his defense over Josh, and it cost the Bills a lot of games so far. So I can understand Dable McDermott having his issues with Dable, and for people who are, how's Dable looking right now with the Giants? Again, apples and oranges. Dable doesn't have a franchise quarterback with the Giants. Put Josh Allen with that Giants team, and maybe they win the Super Bowl last year. I won't say it's far-fetched. That Giants team wasn't a Super Bowl roster, but they made the playoffs. They were dangerous enough to make the playoffs. And Josh Allen is this kind of player who elevates teams, right? So this year they are struggling, but they are down to their third string quarterback, and that roster is still a mess so far. They still needing to work on that roster. So I really believe the Bills weren't in a position to fire McDermott and keep Dable, unfortunately, in the past. But it seems like it was the ideal situation, the ideal partnership. And maybe there is another one starting to grow right now with Allen and Joe Brady. So that's something that I would really pay attention to it, because, man, I don't care if Brady is young and if Brady only had an experience as a defensive coordinator and now he's an interim offensive coordinator. Had previous experience as an offensive coordinator for the Panthers, and now his second shot, and he's young. I don't care. Pay attention to him. Pay attention to his relationship with Josh, because if they start to grow something special right now, again, you're not moving on from McDermott. You're not forced to move on from everybody under McDermott, and you're not forced to move on from Bean. The Bills can opt for some continuity without McDermott at the helm. Okay, if they really realize he's the problem. So in Pegula's place, I'd pay a lot of attention to Joe Brady, and I'd really make it an interview, not just for the offensive coordinator job, but even for the head coach job, if the season doesn't go well going forward, because you can't lose another opportunity just like we lost with Dable and Josh together. Right? I really think we can't. We got to maximize Josh's window, and that's another opportunity, in my opinion. So to close it out, Bills Mafia, again, A lot of interesting stuff in that article. A lot of positive stuff about McDermott there too, not just negative. All right, but there are some flaws from McDermott that can't be. You can't close your eyes to that. All right. Uh, I wouldn't. I wouldn't be too worried about McDermott treated his coaching staff badly or saying bad words about some players. I wouldn't take it too much into consideration because it happens on every locker room, every head coach. You need to curse at some players, at some coaching staff, and I'm pretty sure McDermott has done a lot of great stuff in the community. He has proven himself as a great man. He's a flawed man just like us, and it's part of being a human being. Maybe he needs to get fired and to learn from his mistakes and become a better coach somewhere else. It's part of a process sometimes too to get better, right? A lot of people mention Andy Reid with the Eagles and now the Chiefs, and who knows what would have been Andy Reid if he continued as an Eagles head coach and didn't go through that experience of getting fired, rethinking about his ways, and doing some stuff differently. So it's part of the development of a head coach too. All right, I have total respect for McDermott as a person, total respect for him as a coach, total appreciation for what he has done for the Bills, and I have zero trust he can change as a Bills coach his ways totally soon enough to save his Bills career and lead this team to a Super Bowl win. I don't trust that. I hope he shuts my mouth. I hope you can use this video, okay, in February to tell, see, Fernando, you was totally wrong, and I will be the happiest man in the world doing so, accepting being wrong about that and celebrating a Bills Super Bowl win under McDermott and under Josh Allen. But if the things continue as they are right now, okay, the Bills won't even make the playoffs maybe because this team gotta be perfect right now. And McDermott, that's a big test for him. Can he, during this bye week, make this team a disciplined one again, make this team believe again, make this team stop beating themselves, shooting themselves on their feet? Can he do that? If he can, this team can be very dangerous and maybe win it out still this year. I just don't believe it to be possible, all right? Because of what we've seen so far this year. Time will tell, but I really appreciate that Tyler Dunne's article, and I really hope Pegula can pay attention and do his own research and make the right choice when the time comes. Okay, Bills Mafia, thank you so much for listening to me today. Hit that like button, subscribe to Buffalo Rumblings channel. This episode will be available in a moment via Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all podcast aggregators. Thank you so much. I will be back next Sunday with Leading the Charge, totally in Portuguese, with the post-game show, Bills and Chiefs, hopefully after the first win in what can be the last McDermott stand. So thank you so much. See you around. Go Bills.